The Canon R5c is a pretty incredible little powerhouse of a camera, but there's one major issue I have with it that's killing me, and man, Canon, I really think it's extremely fixable. Okay, so I just got my Canon R5c. I've had it for about a week now, and I've really had the time to kind of dive into it, and I really, really do love what this camera is and can produce. The image quality is beautiful, and though the battery issues are a little bit of a pain, I can accept the power workarounds for this system because I use V-mounts and other things like that, and it's not gonna be something that cripples me, and I will use those as, honestly, the image is so good, I'm willing to accept those little things and work with this. Now, I do want to talk about what I consider the biggest single problem that I am encountering with the Canon R5c today in its first release version. And I want to start off before I go into the problem of this camera, I just want to put a little positivity note here, and that is this. I want to make sure that we're not trashing this camera. I mean, I'll be honest, this camera is such an incredible workhorse that even though I'm going to kind of gripe about something, I think it's important for us to keep perspective here about what an amazing piece of technology this is and what we have our hands on. Now, that being said, we are all Canon shooters and there is room for improvement here. And I figure I just want to let you all know that maybe we can let our voices be heard and maybe the people at Canon can maybe get most of these fixes with a firmware update, because that's really where my biggest problem comes. And let's talk about the single biggest problem on the Canon R5c. And that is this. The video menu system is not in any way, shape, or form designed for a mirrorless camera. The only analogy I can think of when I'm looking at this is it does feel kind of like they took a Formula One race car and tried to put it in a Ford F-150 truck. And what happens is you have the soul of a race car inside a truck. And a truck is a very, very different entity than a race car. And by using the same operating system and not taking any considerations for how those two systems work differently, there's going to be conflict and you're not going to maximize what you can get. If your pickup truck's driving like a F1 racer, you're not maximizing what your pickup truck can do. And it feels like that's really what happened here in the Canon R5c. And there's a couple of case in points here that I think really illustrates what this is. The first one is the aperture wheel. If you're coming from any kind of mirrorless system or DSLR, the aperture wheel is a muscle memory ingrained thing that you use to control your aperture a lot. The other thing is the set menu is something that I use all the time. I have a pop program and do it. For some inexplicable reason, your aperture ring has absolutely no function when you're in video mode. It is completely inaccessible. You can literally not do anything. You can't program it. You can't make a hotkey. You can't control the dial. It's literally a dead part of your camera when you are in video mode. So this is a part of the camera that is built into the body. It's hardware that you cannot access in video mode because other cinema bodies do not have a system like this. And it's like Canon took no consideration whatsoever of the Cinema OS and the differences that make what's so awesome about an R5 body. They didn't make any accommodations for it. Another area that you'll really see this is in the Wi-Fi. I am completely baffled by Wi-Fi in the Canon R5c. If any users out there find something out here that I don't know, I'll be happy to make a retraction on this later. But on the Canon R5, you have Wi-Fi built in this camera if you're using photography mode. If you're in photo mode, you can cut on Wi-Fi, you can use Canon Connect, and you can control this camera with no problem. But if you want to use this exact same body, you just flip a switch in video mode, then you have to use a WFT R10 wireless file transmitter, a second piece of equipment that is sold separately from this body to access Wi-Fi. And I'm pretty sure that has to do with the OS operating system in the Cine line. Now, in my opinion, probably be positive, but this is absolutely ridiculous. Once again, there's a part of this camera that is literally built into the body that you cannot access in video mode, but you can access when you are in photo mode. And really, I think the last thing that illustrates this is the battery issues on the Canon R5c. I know a lot of you have heard about the Canon R5c. The battery does exhaust itself really, really quick, but I think a big part of that is actually more due to the Cinema menu OS system than it is about the batteries and the camera itself. And I think really just kind of deciphering it, I think the Cinema OS level requires a base level of power to kind of guarantee a certain level of working. And the thing is, you're using these very small BP Canon batteries, which are already small, but what's obvious is when your battery is exhausted in video mode, if you switch over to photo mode, you still have half a battery left. So literally what Canon has done is they have taken a very, very small battery and then only let you utilize 50% of that. They haven't done anything in the camera cinema menu system that lets you maximize the battery that comes with this camera, that comes with this body, and be more efficient and utilize the power smarter. There's no standby low res, there's nothing like that. There's nothing in there that takes into account the R5c body, its unique body, and how it factors into the Cine system. So it just really feels like Canon slammed an OS into this body without taking any considerations for what this body actually is. And I do want to say, I do love having the Canon Cine menu on this camera. I mean, that is awesome. It's actually one of the single best things about the Canon R5c is you do have access to that Canon Cine menu because it really gives you so much potential in unlocking a lot of the little things that you want as a cinema maker, as a filmmaker on a camera. I just wish it was actually tailored to the body that it's working on and not a C300, which, let's be honest, this is a very, very different camera than a C300. You shouldn't have the same piece of firm operating system operating this and a C300. Two different systems, they need to have some differences recognized in the hardware. Now, the good news about this is I really believe that most of these issues can be resolved with firmware updates, which is why I'm making this video. I'm literally making this video just to make people aware of it. Hopefully, we can raise our voice a little bit and see if Canon addresses some of the issues in the OS system that need to be addressed. And really what it comes down to is Canon just needs to recognize that this is a unique body. It needs to have its menu system tweaked to maximize it. Now, my hope is that Canon either fixes a Cine menu to fully maximize the R5c system, or honestly, if it can't do that for whatever reasons in the OS system, there's actually a working solution right now. Canon, if you're listening, there's actually a non-Cine workaround we could have. And I think I speak for a lot of people that are R5 users moving to the R5c. I don't have any problem keeping this switch that switches me into a Cine menu, because I love having it. But maybe there's some times when I wouldn't mind accessing my mode button and using the physical buttons that are on the R5 operating system, which is already designed for this camera, and accessing the R5 video options in this camera, because then you use all the R5 video options, their video, and not have overheating, which is great in the body and all that stuff. That would be another workable solution. So maybe, Canon, we could get R5 photo, non-Cine video, and then you have the Cine video option as well if they can't update the firmware. But let's just hope there are firmware update issues that do touch on this. It really is a great camera, and I'm really, really excited. I've really enjoyed using it, but I really feel that most of the issues I've had with this camera this far is that it has an operating system that is not tailored or considerate of the actual physical body that it is in. Anyway, guys, I would love to hear what you have to think about this. Please leave me any messages if you have anything down below. Yeah, leave any comments, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.